I set up a series of polls, taking 64 Spider-Man villains and having them battle it out against each other as voted by you to see who is the greatest Spider-Man villain of all time. It's the Green Goblin. You don't need to watch the whole video. I wish you would, but it's the Green Goblin. The real interesting stuff happened along the way. Who's Spider-Man's greatest villain?
Haas. It's a complicated question.
Green Goblin.
Hobgoblin.
Sandman.
Venom.
Goblin?
Sure, which one? Green or Hob?
Green.
Me.
Oh, Venom.
Willem Dafoe. Isn't that the green-faced guy?
Hell if I know.
Venom?
Uncle Ben.
Green Goblin.
Without hesitation, let's jump right into the first round. We had Electro, Big Wheel, Alistair Smythe, and the Grey Goblin. The Grey Goblin actually got 11% of the votes. I think that just because people thought he was the Green Goblin. The disappointing thing here was Smythe. I grew up watching the 90s animated series and I've read the comics, and I think Smythe is a lot bigger threat than people realize, and he's actually a big player. Obviously, he's not going to beat Electro. You'll notice a theme here in the first round. A lot of it was a big name and then a bunch of smaller guys that might not have had a chance. Big Wheel took 21%. I think that's just for the memes, but Electro did move on. Following that, we had Hydro Man, Sin Eater, Mysterio, and the Speed Demon. Once again, no big surprise here. Sin Eater had a really good story. Hydro Man, pretty profile villain for the time, but not really a lasting character. Mysterio, obviously he's going to move on. Vermin, Hammerhead, the Lizard, and the Beetle. This was the first one where I thought maybe somebody other than the obvious choice had a chance, but Hammerhead did not. The Lizard destroyed him. Vermin actually also came in a lot lower than I thought he would. Next we had Typeface, Silvermane, Morlun, and Sandman. This one was also questionable because I thought more of the younger members of the audience might think Morlun was the thing, or some of the older guys might remember Silvermane's a real threat. Couple of contenders there to go on to the second round. Typeface, obviously not. Sandman took it without question. Then we had the Hobgoblin facing off against Tarantula, Doppelganger, and Black Cat. Doppelganger did a 9% based off recognition alone, I imagine, his connection to Carnage. Black Cat actually took a very early lead in this one, and I had debated not putting her in this at all, because she's not necessarily a villain, not really, but she got a lot of vote because she's hot. But Hobgoblin ended up taking it away in the end, which is kind of what I was expecting. Now I guess I can explain how I had it in tiers. I went through 64 characters and kind of listed them in my head who I thought was number 1 all the way down to 64, and the tier-based system was based off of that. So Green Goblin number 1, Kangaroo 64, Screwball and Massacre somewhere in the middle. Obviously, Green Goblin didn't really stand a chance of losing in the first round, so he breezed through. The same story goes for Doc Ock, facing off against the Gibbon, Menace, and Boomerang. It's a shame, Boomerang's another personal favorite of mine, but I really did not expect him to pass the first round. And now here's where we come with the first real twist. We had the Chameleon up against the Enforcers, Swarm, who's a Nazi that is made of bees, and the Spot. Now, the Spot actually took 56% of the votes and knocked the Chameleon out, who only got 37. And I mean, Chameleon was in Amazing Spider-Man number 1. He was like the first villain Spider-Man had to fight. To have him lose out to the Spot like really shows the popularity of Hollywood and cinema and recency bias, because the Spot, as you probably know, was just in the Spider-Verse sequel, where again, he was a neat character, but not a big threat. He was accidentally there doing stuff, so to call him the greatest villain kind of blew me away. Continuing on with the first round, we had Jack-O-Lantern, Molten Man, Chance, all just losing horribly to the Vulture, which was foreseen. Then we had Phil Urich, the Goblin Knight, up against the Kingpin, Digger, and Tombstone. Another one where I think in a different circumstance, Tombstone might have been able to go on to the next round, but Kingpin just destroyed him. Now, a lot of people here were saying, hey, Kingpin's not a Spider-Man villain, he's a Daredevil villain. Kingpin's kind of an everyone villain, but I don't think you can talk about the top Spider-Man villains without mentioning Kingpin. He shot Aunt May, he did a lot. He was a throwaway villain originally, kind of, and without Daredevil and Frank Miller, he wouldn't have been as prominent, but he's still very much in the running as a Spider-Man villain. And from here also, you can see the dedicated 11% that let themselves be known in the comments that had seen Spectacular Spider-Man, and Tombstone's presence there was not lost upon them. Earlier in this first portion of the poll, there were a lot of write-in votes for The Wall. The Wall is from the Electric Company and would be by Morgan Freeman or whatnot. I don't know, but he's not in continuity. So I threw up a special bonus poll to say, who's the best non-continuity Spider-Man villain? The Wall, Swiss Miss, Baron von Rathenraven, or Professor Monster? And The Wall won, so. Another one I didn't see coming from the first round was White Rabbit versus Red Vulture versus J. Jonah Jameson. I actually went back and forth about putting Jameson on this list at all, but Jameson is a major antagonist to Spider-Man. A lot of people also commented saying, hey, Jameson's not a villain. He helped Scorpion be created. He helped fund Smythe and the Spider Slayers. He actually operated the Spider Slayers. And I think if you control a robot in a fight with Spider-Man, then you deserve to be a villain. Add to that J. Jonah Jameson has done more harm for Spider-Man's public image than any of these other guys could have done, right? So anyway, in a shocking twist though, he beat with 71% versus 23%. I thought Herman Schultz was a shoo-in to go to the next round, but he was not. Mr. Negative then went up against the Rose, Carry-On, and the Hypno Hustler. Mr. Negative is the obvious choice here, but also propelled forward because of his fame from the Spider-Man video game. Kraven the Hunter had an easy victory over Grizzly, Demo Goblin, and Shriek. Venom also had an easy win over the Looter, the Jackal, and Overdrive. A lot of comments came out here. Venom is an anti-hero. Venom's not really a Spider-Man villain. Venom is his own thing, which is all true. But also a lot of people talking about how the Jackal is a huge Spider-Man villain. The Jackal should have had a much better showing than 4%, but I think it just comes down to the people that have seen the movies. Not knocking my viewers here, but not everybody has read all the comics. They don't quite understand the Jackal's obsession with Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy and all the harm that the Jackal actually did with the Clone Saga and things like that. Like, the Jackal is a huge, major player. I still honestly don't think he would have beat out Venom, but he deserved a better showing than he got. And here we had, right in the middle there, we got some people that were going to go up against each other. This is probably the closest battle of the first round. We had the Rhino versus Scorpion versus the Inheritors versus Coldheart. Scorpion took it with 42% over the Rhino's 39%, but the Inheritors actually grabbing 16% as well. A lot of people saying, like, they are responsible for the whole Spider-Verse. So they're a big threat. Are they his greatest villains? I don't think so. Coldheart, I'd never heard of her. I thought Rhino was going to take it over Scorpion, but he did not. And then we had Carnage with a relatively easy victory over Will-O-the-Wisp, Shathra, and the Burglar, though the Burglar did a respectable 17%. He is the one that helped create Spider-Man after all. So with that, the first round came to an end, and I personally have to say that I had a lot of fun with this poll. It just started as something to do while I was on my honeymoon to keep me busy because I didn't have my computer. I had my phone though, and I was just starting these polls. But the conversation and the interaction, everything really worked well together. I've written up more of these polls. I'm going to keep them going, and I'm going to make a video every month on them. So I'm hoping you're enjoying this video as well. Thank you for everyone who took part. If you guys are enjoying this, please like, subscribe. We have 2 more polls actually happening right now for greatest invincible character and the biggest horror icon. Going into the next round, and this one's 1v1, and the final 16 are Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Venom, Carnage, Sandman, Electro, Mysterio, Lizard, Kingpin, Kraven the Hunter, Mr. Negative, Hobgoblin, Vulture, Scorpion, the Spot for some reason, and J. Jonah Jameson. So let's jump right into it. Again, we're not going to spend too much time, we're just kind of giving you the quick beats here, but the Kingpin went over 73% to 23% against the Lizard. All these could have went either way, but I thought maybe the Lizard had more of an edge, but Kingpin just went in there. He shot Aunt May. I think that goes a long way. Kraven the Hunter took 61% over Mysterio's 39%. Once again, wasn't sure which way that was going to go. Both original members of the Sinister Six, both ended up blowing their heads off with a shotgun. In the end, Kraven the Hunter is just more iconic. I guess that's why he's got a movie coming out. Oh, it's also worth noting that once I got to the end of the first round, I realized I completely left Morbius off the list. What can I say? I went out and I actually paid for a lot of therapy to have Morbius erased from my mind, and I can't quite remember why. Oh, god damn it. Mr. Negative did not have a good showing against Electro. I thought maybe Mr. Negative would have a little better shot, but he did not. Electro took him 81% to 19%. Same with the Hobgoblin versus Sandman. I kind of thought Hobgoblin was a shoo-in to keep going, but Sandman beat him handily. Doc Ock righted everything and took the Spot right out of this, like the Spot ever stood a chance. I don't think the Chameleon would have stood a chance against Doc Ock either. And then Venom absolutely dominated Scorpion. Scorpion, ironically enough, also was Venom for a little while, but 95% to 5%. I don't think Scorpion had a shut thing going on. And then J. Jonah Jameson actually drew blood on the Green Goblin. The Green Goblin decimated everybody in the first round. Green Goblin, obviously everybody figures, is going on to win this. He only took 66% of the vote versus J. Jonah Jameson taking 34%. That honestly shocked me, and for the first time I thought, maybe Green Goblin doesn't have as big a chance as I thought. And then Carnage absolutely destroyed the Vulture. So moving on into the quarterfinals, Green Goblin just destroyed Kingpin, 84-16. I think that's a good place for Kingpin to peter out. Like I said, he is an iconic Spider-Man villain, but he's got a lot of other stuff going on with Daredevil, Cage, and everybody else he fights. Punisher. Not to say Green Goblin doesn't. Green Goblin, like whole Norman Osborn thing, right? The Dark Avengers and running the Thunderbolts and being the Iron Patriot. Like, Green Goblin has evolved into a global Marvel-wide threat, but he's still the Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus really overthrew Kraven the Hunter. Because at this point, I also do have to give a shout out. John O'Bannon, 2291, wrote a comment, and it was like a novel, and it was just this whole thesis. You can find it in my page because I posted the whole thing, but it's this whole thing about how just he feels Doc Ock is like the quintessential Spider-Man villain, and he's like a mirror. They both were child geniuses, but one was supported and one wasn't, and Ock's father was abusive, but then he died, and then Ock had to go off and support his family. Whereas, Peter Parker got to keep growing up and got loved, and Doc Ock had to really fight and struggle and scrape everything together to become a doctor, and then he's just, as hard as Peter Parker has it, everything's kind of goes and works out nice for him, where Doc Ock's just pounded and beaten by life and has to scrape for everything he has, and they're just kind of two sides of the same coin, just one gets the light and one doesn't. And it really put a lot into perspective about Doc Ock as a Spider-Man villain for me. I think it's worth checking out. And then Venom destroyed Electro, and Carnage actually went pretty good against Sandman, 60% to 40%. Sandman did a lot better than I thought. I have a newfound respect for Sandman. I will say, actually, this round here I worded incorrectly. I didn't make it as clear that this was a popularity vote on who is the greatest villain. So a lot of people were treating them as versus, and now I kind of want to see Carnage versus Sandman to see what happens. So there we have it. As I predicted, the final four are the Green Goblin, Carnage, Doc Ock, and Eddie Brock, Venom. Green Goblin made really short work of Carnage, and there were actually only 2 comments in there that mentioned the Red Goblin, so that's interesting. But then Doc Ock didn't beat Venom. I, from the get-go, thought Doc Ock was a shoo-in for number 2, especially after reading that whole thing and having a new perspective for Doc Ock. I was like, I want Doc Ock to win this whole thing. But it petered out, and Doc Ock is number 3. And I'm shocked. Venom is by far more popular. Venom has the movies. I agree. At this point, Venom isn't really a Spider-Man villain. Venom is kind of his own hero. Venom is his own thing. And what has he done as a Spider-Man villain? He was just this badass Spider-Man villain for the 90s. He showed up. He had such a threat, He could do anything. He looked awesome. He had this awesome suit. He knew who Peter Parker was. He could negate the spider sense. And what did he do? Doc Ock was responsible for killing Captain Stacy. Doc Ock married Aunt May. Doc Ock created the Sinister Six. Doc Ock stole Peter Parker's body and lived his life for years. Like Green Goblin killed Gwen Stacy. Green Goblin earns his spot and deserves it. But Venom, great character, popular character, didn't deserve to be onto the finals, in my opinion. But that's the vote. I had up to 4,000 people voting on these. So, that's the way it goes. Pour one out for Doc Ock if you're currently drinking and outside. And then we had the finals. The final round came out. Votes are actually still coming in for it, but the writing's on the wall. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it is Green Goblin. Green Goblin took Venom 68% to 32%. Like I said, what else can I say? Green Goblin, you ask people in this... Actually, I asked people in this video at the beginning, and not as many people said Green Goblin as I thought, which is also concerning, but, Green Goblin, brilliantly portrayed in the movies by Willem Dafoe. Green Goblin has been there since near the beginning, right? Amazing Spider-Man 14. And it was that whole reveal, and he's my best friend's dad. Like, Green Goblin did it, he played the long game, he killed Gwen Stacy, he knows who Peter is, he's got the dual identity thing going, he's in Peter's personal life, he's in Spider-Man's life, he is right there. Nobody's going to argue with you that Green Goblin is not the quintessential Spider-Man villain. I think we all knew how this poll was going to go, but I had a lot of fun along the way. But then after that, I've got polls down the road, I've got Batman villains, I've got got Batman villains, I've got Superman villains, we've got Avengers, we've got Marvel villains, we've got Justice League members, I've got Hollywood Babes coming up. There's so many polls that we're going to keep going that it's just fun. Anyway, like I said, I've been Haussmann Comics. I'm looking to turn the channel around. I've still got the Batman count. If you're still at this point, then you're in, but I've still got the Batman count. I've got the Rogue Files, got the new couple of shorts things I'm working on, but I really want to turn this thing around and start gaining some more momentum here. And I'm hoping that this is the start of it. So if you could, share this around, like it, subscribe it, do all the YouTube things. Just help me out. This is a call to action. If you guys can start helping me grow a little bigger, it'll be awesome for all of us.